Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast. Hey there, Canadiens Connection fans. We are going to get you to all of the latest Habs hockey talk that you're here for in just a minute. But while Rick and Michael are getting settled in the studio, I just want to bring you a quick message from our brand new sponsor for the show, Manscaped. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When your man is playing in the summer sun, make sure he's groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends over at Manscaped, he can make this season his smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep his boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Have him join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. With our exclusive offer right here on the show, get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN. It's summertime, and the trimming is easy, right? Hey, the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything he needs to prepare for that summer bod. And inside the package, you'll get the star of the show, which is the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. And Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts on this package, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed travel bag. So get 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. Hey, it's smooth sack summer, ladies and gentlemen. Get your mans or yourselves on board or get left behind. Now let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 301 of the Canadiens Connection podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by the editor of the Hockey News Montreal, the founder and the president of Rocket Sports, Mr. Rick Stevens. And how's it going today, Rick?
Good day, sir. It's going well. It's going great. We're only hours away, less than a week away from the NHL Draft, and Canadiens fans are getting pretty excited, especially because there doesn't seem to be any kind of, settling on the pick that they're going to make. It's a little up in the air now. But no, in addition to a week away from the draft, it's happy summer to you, first day of summer, and happy Saint Jean. Those of us in Quebec will be celebrating on Monday.
Yeah, nice to have the long weekend here, an extra day to try and prepare for that draft. And then, of course, the week after, it's the big draft weekend, like you said, coming on Canada Day weekend as well. So lots of stuff to get to, lots to look forward to. And this episode, we're going to entitle it, Who Will the Habs Pick? Sportsnet's Sam Cosentino reveals first-round draft prediction. So in this first segment, we'll take you through all your Montreal Canadiens updates. We have some audio coming from Cayden Lindstrom, and then we'll end the segment with some news from around the NHL. And then in segment 2, we'll bring in a very special guest, Sportsnet's draft analyst, Sam Cosentino. He's been a reoccurring guest, one of our favorites to have on the show, and what better time to bring him on than the week before the draft. And of course, in segment 3, we'll turn it over to our listeners for the Have Your Say segment. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, should the Canadiens draft for need with the 5th overall pick or select the best available player, even if that means taking a defenseman? We want to hear from you. And Rick, what's the best way for all of our wonderful listeners to reach out and let us know their thoughts?
We make it pretty easy for you. We've set up the Rocket Sports text line with an easy number to remember. It's 5853-ROCKET. Text us at 5853-ROCKET. And when you do, if you'd leave your name and your location, we'd really appreciate it, just in case we want to use it on the air in one of our subsequent episodes.
You can also make sure that you're following at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's a great way to reach out to us as well. And you can check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. And here is an interesting story that happened this past week, coming from THN Montreal. That's the Hockey News Montreal. The Montreal Canadiens' best active homegrown player has been come out, brought to you by Upper Deck. So in collaboration with Upper Deck and the Hockey News, the best active homegrown player for each team was selected. And for Montreal, who do we have?
Upper Deck selected Yuri Slafkovsky as the best active homegrown player, and there's a fascinating story on THN Montreal about Yuri Slafkovsky, his selection, his rookie year, and then where he is today, and why Upper Deck selected him. You'll want to check that out at thn.com/Montreal. And the other part of that, I guess, is that we want to hear from you. We gave the number 5853-ROCKET. Who is your best active homegrown player currently? I'm sure there'll be some votes for Cole Caulfield and Cayden Gooley. Before the show, you had mentioned Lane Hudson. We want to hear from our listeners to tell us who you think the best active homegrown player is. But check out that article on thn.com/Montreal.
You can also check out Habs Notebook posts and feature articles appearing daily at thn.com/Montreal throughout this busy offseason. That's the Hockey News for Montreal. Looking into our roster news, David Savard and Christian Dvorak remain on Daily Faceoff's trade target boards. So David Savard at 18, Dvorak at 23. Both have 1 year left on their deals. So the rationale for David Savard, well, it's a bit of a logjam on defense, and David Savard could be eyed at a piece to move out. Why Christian Dvorak? Well, he just never worked out coming into Montreal, and I guess Kent Hughes is doing his best to see what he can recuperate from that asset.
Yeah, and for Daily Faceoff, they had one of the players move off of that list, as there was a couple of trades, and we'll talk about that when we get to the NHL news, the hockey news, a little bit later. But we'll keep an eye on that board for you and let you know if there's any new Canadians that appear on that list.
The Canadiens have also released their 2024-25 preseason schedule. Too early to start talking about next season. I know this season's not completely done, but there will be 6 games scheduled that preseason. 4 of them will be at home. Typically, Montreal's preseason is quite home heavy.
Yeah, and the Canadiens like it, obviously, to have most of their games at home, and other teams do as well, because in the preseason, the gate is split between the two teams. You're going to get a full building in Montreal, even in the preseason. So it's a little bit of money for the teams coming in. The preseason starts off with 2 Metro Division rivals in Philadelphia and New Jersey. Then the teams that you might expect: Toronto, a home and home, and Ottawa, a home and home. So 6, as you said, 6 preseason games total. And yes, we are talking about next season already.
The summer of love continues as Nick Suzuki, Brendan Gallagher, and Yoel Armia participated in Jake Evans' wedding. So the Montreal Canadiens forward had a nice wedding, beautiful photos, beautiful locations. Jealous I couldn't have been there, but just a big congratulations goes out to Jake Evans on tying the knot there. And
it was Jake Evans that deemed this summer the Habs Summer of Love that you mentioned. First, of course, there was the wedding in Italy. Josh Anderson, we saw Nick Suzuki there, Cole Caulfield. Nick Suzuki then made his way to Dublin, Ireland, for this wedding, along with, as you said, Gallagher, Armia. Interesting former Canadians also there, Joel Edmondson and Tyler Toffoli. And we've had a few questions from our audience asking, would Tyler Toffoli be a player to bring back into the fold? If you think so, why don't you hit us up at 5853-ROCKET?
That'd be a great wedding gift for Jake, I think. And now I think we'll get to our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
So we continue along with our 2024 NHL entry draft coverage. Every week we've been bringing forward some new news, mock drafts and whatnot. We have a couple mock drafts and lists to get to pretty soon, but to start things off, Gold Star Hockey held a mini combine in Florida. Gold Star Hockey is a sports management company currently running a pre-draft showcase with some of the draft-eligible clients that ran from June 18th to June 23rd in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Fascinating. And these were some of the prospects who weren't at the combine in Buffalo. Dan Milstein, the agent, put this together for his clients. And there were an awful lot of GMs and scouts that attended this. Of course, it just happened to coincide with the Stanley Cup final, also in Florida at times. But it was the real first opportunity that many got to interact with Ivan Demidov, and in addition to his Russian clients, that is Dan Milstein, there were some non-Russian clients there too. I think Zane Perek was there, and there were some workouts and interviews and whatnot. Now. Demidov was on the ice, but not on skates. He was, I think he was demonstrating some or making use of some warrior sticks for the first time. But hands on him, like the hands were crazy, and he was running around in running shoes on the ice because he's still looking after his injury. But an ankle injury but just fascinating the way this was all put together. Demidov they kept a close eye on him because, the talk has been, maybe size is an issue, there. Not so much. He was officially measured at, 6 foot, half an inch. So above the 6 foot mark. The other thing that was a little surprising is his English is tremendous. He says he's been working with a tutor, and his English was very, very good. And there was he only went to the translator. There was a Russian translator there for, colloquialisms, hockey cliches to find exactly the right words. But interesting, fascinating, and it was really interesting to me coming out of the combine that it seemed that, and this was even some of the Montreal reporters that were in Buffalo, they came back saying that they were a little higher on Cayden Lindstrom, and that from what they heard from the talk, that they weren't as sure. Lots of questions about Demidov. And this has continued, and I think part of this it's hard to know. We've said before, after Celebrini, there's no consensus. So what's happening here? What's happening with the different lists? I've never before seen so much. It's not misinformation. It's disinformation that teams are out there specifically bad-mouthing Demidov in hopes that he falls so that they can select him. A lot of misdirection and smokescreens going on at the combine and since, and it makes it a little bit tougher to try and figure out exactly what's going on. I think though that Demidov is there are going to be teams who take him somewhere in that top 5.
Oh, for sure. One of those teams could be the Columbus Blue Jackets, but there is a bit of a catch here because general manager Don Waddell said that he is willing to listen to offers for that fourth overall pick that they own. So that adds to the list of other teams picking pretty high that have their picks up for grabs potentially. Ottawa, Buffalo, and New Jersey were previously reported to have been shopping around their picks. And the interesting thing, too, to add to that is New Jersey did trade a first-round pick this past week, but that was a 2025 first-round pick, so that 2024 one could still be at play here.
Fascinating. Remember, there were no trades last year in the first round, and there could be a number this year. Don Waddell, the new general manager and president of hockey ops in Columbus, he said in his media availability, his pre-draft media availability, as you said, he said that he'll listen to offers. He also said that he knows that teams around him are willing to move. The Montreal Canadiens are around him in the order, not saying that they are willing to move, but that would be interesting if there was a swap, a move up by the Canadiens to try and get their player. Don Waddell did say that the cost would probably come at a premium. So again, something to keep an eye on at the draft, and it may make this draft a little more active than we saw last year.
Now we have time to get to TSN Craig Button's final ranking list of this upcoming draft. And this, I have to say, this is very different than a lot of other lists I've seen, very different than what a lot of our guests have been saying on this podcast. So 1, Macklin Celebrini, I think that's pretty standard. 2, Demidov. 3, TJ Ginla. 4, Zev Buyam. 5, Cole Iserman. And just from there, you see guys like Artem Levshunov at number 8. You have Cayden Lindstrom at 9. Saleyev is outside of that top 10. And it's pretty crazy. I don't know. This Craig Button list is just very different than everything else I've been told up to this point.
Yeah, Konsta Helenius at 6, and Beckett Seneca at 11. And as you said, Saleyev down at 12th. There's no way he's... And we should say, this is not Craig's mock. This is his ranking. This is talent-wise. But Ginla up at 3. And you wonder if that relates to... he being involved in drafting his dad, Jerome Ginla, 11th in his draft year. It's been 29 years since Jerome Ginla was drafted. So fascinating. It's all fascinating, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly how the lists, and if the public lists are so different, that the team's private lists are just as different.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to watching the TSN broadcast, because they usually show what Craig Button's picks are as opposed to what the picks actually are. So I'm curious how this ends up weighing up, given how different this is than everything else we've seen. And one more thing just to point out, all the way at number 26, where Montreal has their second first round pick, Cole Hudson, that's where Craig Button managed to rank him.
Huh. So can you have two smaller size defensemen, mobile defensemen on your roster? We'll see if the Canadiens think so. Craig thinks so.
2 Jack Eyes, 2 Hudsons. I'm down. And of course, as tradition, as this past month, I think we've had an athletic mock draft pretty much every week. Well, Corey Pronman this past week put out 225 picks, so he went through, he did all 7 rounds. And as per the last few weeks as well, he still has the Montreal Canadiens taking Ivan Demidov at number 5, which is pretty crazy, isn't it? He's locked in there. Pretty crazy that he mocked 225 picks, but more power to him. At 26, Igor Surin, which would mean mocking the Canadiens taking Igor Surin at 26. That would mean 2 Russians taken by the Canadiens in the first round, kind of following along 2 Slovakians a couple of years back. So we'll see how Corey does when the real draft picks are compared to his mocks. And just giving a quick top 5 here for his mock draft: Celebrini, Levshunov, Saleyev, Cayden Lindstrom, and then Ivan Demidov. So it is possible things fall into place like that for the Montreal Canadiens. I personally am just going to have my fingers crossed the whole way here.
Yeah, and we've had experts from a bunch of different sources, and one of them was the Elite Prospects and Russ Cohen. The team of scouts at Elite Prospects has put out their draft guide, and something they do a little bit differently is they put out qualities, characteristics of the prospects and rank the top 5 within those. So best four-way mobility. The scouting poll has Zane Parekh at the top of that, then Sam Dickinson and Anton Saleyev. But the players that we've been talking about, scouts poll best shot, Cole Eiserman, number 1, Cayden Lindstrom, number 3. Scouts poll best hands, Demidov at number 1, Beckett Seneca at number 5. Best vision, Demidov again at number 1, Zeev Buium at 4. Highest ceiling of a prospect, Demidov, number 1, Cayden Lindstrom, number 4. Highest floor, Demidov at 3, Lindstrom at 4. Best offensive defenseman, Zane Parekh takes that. Number 4 is Zeev Buium. Best transition defenseman, number 1, Zeev Buium. This is fascinating that they've ranked it this way. Power forward, number 1, Cayden Lindstrom. Number 5, Sasha Boisvert, someone who may be available at in the low 20s or mid 20s where the Canadiens are. Fascinating stuff, but names that you're familiar with now as we've been having our special draft coverage over the last month or so.
A bit of a curious report came out of 32 Thoughts and Elliot Friedman earlier today. It seems like there is a Winnipeg Jets prospect that could be on the move here. He plays in the NCAA, and who is that player, Rick?
That is Cutter Gauthier. Sorry, that is not Cutter Gauthier. It reminds me of the whole Cutter Gauthier situation. It's actually Rutger McGroarty. Rutger McGroarty was a first-round pick in 2022, 14th overall by the Jets, and playing for the University of Michigan. And has had 2 strong seasons at the University of Michigan, and it's curious why the Jets would be willing to part with him, but it appears that a similar situation happened. Why Cutter Gauthier was on my mind. Cutter Gauthier didn't want to sign with the Flyers, and we know that he was traded to Anaheim for Jamie Drysdale. The Canadiens were offered Cutter Gauthier. We remember that story that we talked about. Now, would they be interested in Cutter? I'm going to say it again. In Rutger McGroarty, I would be, depending on the price, of course. 20-year-old and loads of potential. He's really deceptive. A great playmaker. And he's I remember one of the scouts calling him a bull. He's solid at 6'1", 205. So we'll see what happens there. Could he be in play on draft day or before?
So if you want to go back and make sure that you're fully prepared for this NHL entry draft before next week, we have a number of different episodes where we did extensive coverage and had some great guests. So go back to episode 300 entitled Unraveling Probable Draft Scenarios for the Montreal Canadiens. That one features special guest Michael Agello talking about the draft combine. You can also check out episode 298 entitled Top Pick Scouting Director Identifies Key Draft Targets for the Montreal Canadiens. That features Jerome Berube. He just recently put out the NHL Draft Black Book. It was released, I believe, 2 weeks ago now, and honestly, such a great resource. I like listening to Jerome quite a bit. And finally, you can check out episode 296 entitled Elite Prospect Scout Ranks Montreal Canadiens Draft Options. That features Russ Cohen, another reoccurring guest here on Canadiens Connection. And he released his final top 32 rankings. That was 2 weeks ago at NHLDraftBuzz.com. So make sure you check all of those to make sure you're fully up to date on the NHL draft. And news out of USA Hockey from this past week, it was announced that they had their summer roster all together for the upcoming World Junior Summer Showcase. No Montreal Canadiens yet, but maybe after the draft there's some names. Anyone that stood out to you there, Rick?
Well, we familiar names: Ryan Leonard, Oliver Moore, Quentin Musty, and then names like are the draft eligible prospects. You have Cole Hudson, you have Trevor Connolly, you have Cole Iserman. So there is a possibility that Montreal will have a prospect there, but not at this point, not until we see what happens in the draft.
And some Laval Rocket news, if you can believe it. Remember a couple weeks ago we were reporting that Jeff Wool was re-signed as the head coach for the Laval Rocket? Well, it turns out he will be leaving that position as he leaves the Laval Rocket on a mutual agreement to join an opportunity at Clarkson U to be a coach there. So what do you think about this big bomb that was dropped this past week?
Boy, there was some surprise that Wool had signed an extension. That was a 3-year contract extension as the head coach for Laval on May 29th, so 3 weeks ago. And then that bombshell came out that he's heading to the NCAA and will be a coach at Clarkson. It kind of confirms for me what I've felt about JF Wool, that his heart was never in being a head coach in the AHL. He seemed to really struggle with it. The fact that he was expected to be a teacher, and we heard him over and over again say, he was focused on winning for the good folks in Laval, and that others would take care of the development, and that development would happen in practice, and that development would happen from the development crew, Adam Nicholas and others when they came in. So he really struggled, and yes, he's going to be dealing with young players, but in the NCAA, he'll be focused on winning, and that seems to match his makeup a little bit better. He was always more comfortable with a veteran AHL lineup. He said that many times, and he said that in his exit meetings this year. And with the Rocket, they're going to have a younger lineup, that's for sure. Lots of prospects, and that's a good thing for the Montreal Canadiens organization. It just didn't fit, I don't think, with JF Wool. He gets to go to Clarkson, his alma mater, in the NCAA. He's familiar with the area, and probably a little bit more money, a much easier schedule, a much easier travel schedule. Games on the weekends, home during the week, a better family situation for him. What surprised me is, and I understand that as Chris Peters reported, that the head coaching job at Clarkson just opened up last week. Casey Jones went to Cincinnati, but if you've made a commitment, and if you really truly feel strongly about your commitment that you've made to the Laval Rocket for 3 years by signing that contract on May 29th, if this came to him, if it was me, I might have said, "Gee, guys, thanks. I'm honored. I'm flattered, in fact. But I just made a commitment for 3 years here, and." I'll catch you next time, kind of thing. But that's not JF Wool, and he jumped at the opportunity. The two parties, that is John Cedric and JF Wool, sat down and they agreed to part ways. And now the Rocket are having to look for a head coach. Will they promote from internally? They might, but I doubt that. I truly doubt that. I think they'll go out and find someone. But there's been names put out there. Our own Patrick Williams said, watch the name Stéphane Julien. Pascal Vincent, who we know now is available. He was formerly the AHL head coach, the Manitoba Moose. It's a story that we're keeping an eye on that we didn't expect we're going to have to keep an eye on this summer.
And a little bit more news and some more changes for the Laval Rocket here. Elias Anderson, Philip Cederquist, Olivier Galipeau, Nolan Yaremko, and Strauss Mann will not be returning. No huge losses, to be completely honest. All of these players are just headed off to Europe here. Most of these were veterans. No one here was really a big-time prospect or anything. Very curious as to what happened with Elias Anderson after being such a high draft pick for the New York Rangers, but maybe he'll find a better home over in Switzerland. But nice to see that the Laval Rocket have moved on from some of these veterans, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Strauss-Mann, we know the problems with Strauss-Mann. I think he had 15. He was in 15 games last season, 2 wins there, and which required them to go out and find a replacement to help Jakob Dobas. Nolan Yaremko was mostly with the Trois-Rivières Lions. Galipeau, he had to sit out when the young players came down at the end of the season. Cederquist came over from Rochester mid-year. Anderson, as you said, and the Rangers folks are not happy with him. Both Anderson and Cederquist were RFAs. There are other RFAs that the Montreal Canadiens have to deal with. Justin Barron, Matthias Norlinder, what's going to happen with him? Arber Xhekaj, yes, Ullinen, and some unrestricted free agents. Some of those in Laval, Brady Keeper, Durando, Maillet, and of course we don't expect to see Colin White, Pearson, Chris Weidman back. Mitchell Stevens is another one. So one of the things that JF Wool said was it's key to get the right vets. I don't think the Canadiens have been on target, or Laval Rocket have been on target the last few years in finding the veterans who can support the young players and not be focused on call-ups for themselves. So let's see if they can fill those 5 holes with vets who better fit the younger roster they're going to have next season.
So if you're looking for coverage on the Laval Rocket and you're looking for content all about the Montreal Canadiens prospects, you can head over to thn.com/Montreal. That's the hockey news for Montreal. And now it's time to get to our quotes of the week. And all 3 of them come from Cayden Lindstrom, all coming from the NHL Scouting Combine here. Cayden Lindstrom, in his first quote, he's going to be talking about the possibility of playing in Montreal.
I honestly didn't see that mock draft, but yeah, that would be a cool place to go. I've done a couple of interviews with media from Montreal, and they make it sound like an unbelievable place. I know it's a good franchise and a good hockey market. Their fans are crazy, obviously. But yeah, I think it would be a really fun place to play and get drafted to. Yeah.
That was Mark Masters coughing there during the middle. But a great interview by TSN's Mark Masters. We know Mark, he's very good, especially with the younger prospects. This was an interview that came out this week after Craig Button's mock that came out and said that Lindstrom, he chose Lindstrom going to Montreal. And obviously, Cayden Lindstrom pretty happy with that possibility.
The second quote coming from Cayden Lindstrom, he's being asked about his personality being a fit with the Canadian market.
I mean, yeah, I've heard a lot about how there's a lot of spotlight and a lot of media things, but I think I can handle it. I think I really like the bright lights. I like the loud crowds. I think it motivates me more than anything. Yeah.
Didn't we hear Jacob Fowler say he relishes the bright lights and the big stage? A similar sort of comment coming there from Cayden Lindstrom.
Yeah, he sounds pretty comfortable talking to the media there, at least. Not the most, not the greatest answers in the world. Maybe a little bit unpolished, but it sounds like he's at least comfortable being in the spotlight there, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
And the final quote from Cayden Lindstrom is him talking about rehabbing his injury.
Yeah, it was just a disc herniation. That's really it. Like, those things take a long time to heal. It kind of affected the nerve in my leg, like give me a little sciatica. But yeah, it was nothing like too crazy. It's just like a matter of time. Like nerve stuff takes a while to heal. But yeah, I'm feeling great now. I'm on the ice about 3 to 5 times a week now. I'm in the gym basically every day training, and I train hard. Yeah, but it's good. It's healing up nicely. So yeah.
So it was a week ago that the bombshell came out about the herniated disc. Many kind of panicked on that, Canadiens fans and some of the fan podcasts. Some wild conversation about that. We had Dr. Stephen Morris, who was able to give us a more measured approach. And if you listened last week to episode 300, you would have heard Dr. Stephen Morris. He used the word sciatica. That was the first time I heard that attached to Cayden Lindstrom, and Cayden Lindstrom confirmed that. Nerve issues in his leg. He went on in the interview to say he feels about 90% right now. He had been rehabbing during the season in Vancouver and Calgary. He wasn't 100% when he returned for the playoffs. He expects to be 100% by the end of July, and that his injury is something that takes a while, but he's healing up nicely. And all in all, even with the games that he missed, he was named, you'll remember, the CHL Top Prospect of the Year. So certainly has to be under consideration by the Montreal Canadiens. But just one more shout out to Dr. Stephen Morris. An excellent little segment last week. If you didn't hear it and you want an honest, a expert kind of not opinion, but analysis of the situation, find that on episode 300. Stephen Morris was excellent.
And we actually have some listener reaction to that Stephen Morris segment coming at within that third segment, so make sure you stick around right until the end of the show to get that as well.
For sure.
We're going to end this segment with some hockey news and notes from around the NHL. So to start off here, the Stanley Cup Final is continuing. The Edmonton Oilers versus the Florida Panthers. The series is now 3-3. So to sum this up, I said go Oilers, and then Florida went up 3-0. And then I said, okay, the Oilers have no chance here. The Panthers might even sweep. And then the Oilers tied it up 3-3.
Wow.
So, I'm a bit superstitious here, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, go Florida. They're too good. There's no way Edmonton can win. I'll leave it at that, and I can leave you the proper analysis of this. I just don't want to jinx it.
Nicely done. Yeah, reverse psychology there. We'll see how that works. This is... Wow, what a series. I said last week that I thought that Florida had the better roster, the deeper roster, the better goaltender, the better coach. It's really hard when you look at the Edmonton roster to see a championship group there. And obviously the best player in the game is on the Edmonton team and kind of kickstarted that trouncing, and then Edmonton hasn't looked back, and Florida just doesn't look the same. We'll see what happens on Game 7 on Monday. This is just the third time in Stanley Cup history that a team that was down 3-0 has forced a Game 7, and the other two happened in the 1940s. Toronto in 1942, Detroit in 1945. Detroit lost. Toronto won after being down 3-0. So this, however you look at it, is history in the making.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to watching on Monday regardless. Some news coming from the Columbus Blue Jackets. You mentioned it briefly just a little bit earlier, but Pascal Vincent was fired by the Columbus Blue Jackets. I get that they had a new general manager, Don Waddell, come in to the front office. Maybe it took a few minutes for him to come in and make some decisions, but interesting that just last week we saw that every coaching vacancy was filled, and now the coaching carousel is back open.
Yeah, talk about reverse psychology. I think I said, hey, we have our 32 coaches in the NHL, no more coaching vacancy. And Don Waddell said, watch this. So, Pascal Vincent put into a tough position, having to come in for, it was the beginning of the season, but still promoted from assistant to the head coach with the whole Mike Babcock thing. And it didn't work out. Maybe he wasn't ready for an NHL coaching gig. He had some problems relating to his players, and we'll see if a return to the AHL. That's always hard, though, to have that to have gone to the NHL and then go back to the AHL. Dan Bilesma is doing it with Coachella Valley, but he he had some time off in between to think about it. This will be interesting to see, but obviously a coaching candidate for the Laval Rocket.
So a few weeks ago, we talked about Eric Tulski being given the interim GM title. Well, they removed the interim, and he's officially been named the Carolina Hurricanes GM. So it seems like they did a little bit of a search here, but Eric Tulski seemed like the obvious choice, and big congrats to him.
Absolutely. Big congratulations. The interim tag removed. And as we said when we made the announcement, this is... he has quite a different background than most of the GMs in the National Hockey League, coming from an analytics background. We'll see how that works. I think he made a quip in his press conference, something about not being an AI a GM, but a GM driven by AI. So we'll see what happens there in Carolina. They like to do things differently. And extract the best value apparently out of their front office and their players.
And we'll save the Gary Bettman clips for next week, but we have a couple trades to talk about here. To start, the New Jersey Devils have acquired Jacob Markstrom from the Calgary Flames. Going to Calgary is 2025 first-round pick and the defenseman Kevin Ball. So good move by the New Jersey Devils here. They're going to have probably the best tandem in the league with Allen and Markstrom. And Calgary finally moves on from Jacob Markstrom. I think this was kind of burning a hole into their franchise a little bit. There was some talk that this might have happened at the trade deadline, but unfortunately they couldn't finalize it on time. And I think just overall, just happy for Jacob Markstrom to get into a new situation.
I watched the Jacob Markstrom media availability for the New Jersey media, and he seems relieved. He seems happy. He seems really excited to get to the Devils, and a really nice move there. I thought this was a good trade for the Devils, and as you said, the two Jakes are going to be they're going to have a nice tandem there next season.
We have a trade to announce.
Is that what you're looking for?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Another goalie trade, actually with this one, the Los Angeles Kings have traded, believe it or not, Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Washington Capitals in exchange for goaltender Darcy Kemper. So this is just swapping out problems. Good for Rob Blake for fixing a mistake-ish. It still hurts with the amount that the Los Angeles Kings gave up to bring in PLD. Better than having to do a buyout for the Washington Capitals. Darcy Kemper was just never a good fit there, and certainly played himself out of that number one spot. He'll have an opportunity in Los Angeles to try and get back to what he was before he won the Stanley Cup with Colorado. So, like I said, just swapping out problems and bad contracts here. And, of course, the PLD saga with Montreal. I don't know that it's come to an end here because, according to Friedman, there were other teams showing interest in PLD. Those teams included Montreal and Boston, believe it or not.
Man, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say to that. Canadian, and we covered this last year and had, the beat reporters from the Winnipeg Jets on the show, and we couldn't find a fit for Pierre-Luc Dubois coming to Montreal. And we remember the whole thing with Marc Bergevin and on his knees and whatnot, figuratively. to try and bring that player. He's just been a disaster. And then he comes with that enormous contract now for, oh man, I just can't believe it. It's the fans, the Winnipeg Jets fans, who should be kissing the feet of Kevin Cheveldayoff for getting the haul that he did for Pierre-Luc Dubois from the Kings, because this player has just, he's been a problem player everywhere he's gone and not delivered. And again, Darcy Kemper, Charlie Lindgren beat out Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper had some injury issues, but Charlie Lindgren just flatly outplayed him, won the number one job, started the playoffs for Washington, and I think this is wonderful news for Charlie Lindgren. He'll have a backup now, maybe Hunter Shepard from Hershey, and he is the undisputed number one goaltender in Washington. Couldn't be happier for him. Couldn't be happier for Canadians that this is at least postponed for a while, and may we never have to talk about this again. Is my wish.
I'll see you back here next summer, I think.
Yeah, really.
So with that, I think it's a good time to get to our first break here. You'll hear a message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment, Mocking the Canadiens Picks. Sportsnet's draft analyst Sam Cosentino joins us, and this is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
The chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is just as hot as it is on the ice. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more, don't miss out as the Stanley Cup playoffs wind down. You know the final showdown between the Oilers and the Panthers is going to be hot, so make sure that you get in your bets and your choice for the winner. And if you're new to DraftKings, you gotta check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved.
Welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast, right here on Rocket Sports Radio. My name is Michael Spinella, and you can find me on Twitter at the Spinella. With me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Rocket Sports. You can also follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. Just a reminder here to make sure that you hit that subscribe button for the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on your favorite podcasting app. And Rick, it's less than a week coming up to the draft here. Excited to get Sam Cosentino into the studio pretty soon, but I'm sure all Montreal Canadiens fans are anxiously waiting, learning some of the names of the prospects that will be added to the organization. Joining the show here will be Sportsnet's Sam Cosentino, one of the most knowledgeable draft experts in hockey. He appears regularly as a hockey analyst on Sportsnet and the NHL Network. Sam's going to join Amy Johnson and Rick Stevens to discuss his mock draft 1.0 and reveal who he believes the Canadiens are likely to select in that first round. And with that, off to you guys.
Thanks very much, Michael. Well, you know what? The final countdown is absolutely on. The NHL Draft 2024 edition held in Vegas this year. It is just around the corner. It is next week. And there is no one who we would rather wrap up kind of our preview of what's to come and what the possibilities could be, and a series of draft analysts and experts than none other than Sportsnet's own NHL Draft analyst, Sam Cosentino. Always love having him on the show. He's a wealth of knowledge, love his coverage on Sportsnet as well, and we're very glad to have him back here in the studio. Sam, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, Amy, thanks so much. Rick, great to talk to you guys. This is an annual. I'm not sure how many years, but I want to go and say like 6 or 7 now, maybe.
We're getting there.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome.
You are absolutely getting to be one of holding, the Canadiens Connection Guinness Book of World Records for most requested guests. So definitely high honors there.
Nice. Now, I get invited back. I love coming back, as you know that. But if I'm like the highest requested guest, what is that saying about you two?
Well, the one thing getting right, and of course, there's so much talk going on right now. All the speculation is starting to really ramp up. There's even been some, we've seen the Devils already pull the trigger on a Markstrom trade this week and that kind of thing. So lots happening. But when it comes to the draft itself, it's actually been said quite often, even months ago, but even more so in recent weeks, that there's really no, everyone knows Macklin Celebrini's going first. I think even as you said in your mock, it's the worst kept secret in hockey. Macklin Celebrini is going to go first. But then after that there's not really a solid consensus of what happens after first overall. What is it about this draft class that's making it so challenging to rank consistently from analyst to analyst, expert to expert, that type of thing?
Well, that's a great question. I think there are a couple of different elements. I mean, I think the first one is you have a number of defensemen, and that's always a premium position. Aside from that, amongst that group of premium defensemen, you have a situation where they each bring a little bit different something to the table. And I think that you're looking at all-around guys like Sam Dickinson or Art Levshnoff. You're looking at high-end offensive guys like Zane Parekh. You're looking at guys that are kind of big and rangy at Anton Salaya. And so not only do you have this high group of defensemen, a premium position, you have some right shot guys, you have a wide variance of their abilities. And I think that adds a lot of intrigue to it. The next part of that is you have some really interesting forwards. So Demidov, to me, is the next best player available. You've got a Ginla who's had a huge rise. You got Beckett Seneca, who looks like he's going to be in the top 10. You got Cayden Lindstrom, who maybe some would question the health with the back issues that he's experienced. And so as much as all of these players are really good players, they all bring a little something different to the table, and they all have some sort of question mark surrounding them. And I think that's why we're seeing such a wide variance with prognosticators picks 2 through 10.
So for the Montreal Canadiens, as everyone knows, they have the 5th overall pick. There's a couple of pivot points in this draft, and particularly, I think, at number 2 with the Chicago Blackhawks. Depending on what the Chicago Blackhawks do, could dramatically affect what's available for the Canadiens at 5th overall. You mentioned Levshnoff, and there's been some talk that they've taken a very close look at him and took him out for dinner and whatnot. In your mock, and we should say the mock 1.0 for Sportsnet, you can find at sportsnet.ca, of course. You have Demidov, and why wouldn't you? Why would you pass on a player of that dynamic skill and be able to put him with Connor Bedard? But how did you make that choice between Demidov and Levshnoff?
Yeah, and that's you're looking at Chicago's rebuild, and you're looking at a couple of forwards that I think are going to be really successful here. We saw Frank Nazar get into the lineup, and I think he's a guy that they can help build around. But their forward group is a little bit on the smaller side, so there's a couple of ways you can address that. You can address that with forwards that have size, or you can surround them with bigger defensemen. So the other option is you look at the best player available. And in my opinion, I think Demidov is the next best player available. That comes with it a couple of question marks. A, he's got another year left in his deal. You're not getting him right away. Mm-hmm. B, he plays for a club that has a lot of political ties in Russia. So what kind of pressure, if there is any pressure at all, does the player have on staying with that club? Does the player himself want to come over here and play in the National Hockey League? So these are all questions that are tough to answer when you don't get live in-person viewings of the player during the season and the opportunity to meet with him. Now, that will have changed a little bit in that agent Dan Milstein had a camp in Florida where Demidov was invited. Mm-hmm. People got to see him up close and personal. And also teams, from what I can understand, were given the opportunity to meet with the player. And that is really, really super important.
His English is better than I expected.
It is. And so, and the interesting part about that is that tells me that he's a guy that's, has his eyes set on playing in the National Hockey League.
Right.
What teams feel about after having that in-person meeting is going to go a long way into whether or not they're going to make that selection. So, we saw it with Matvei Michkov last year. His in-person meeting with Philadelphia before arriving in Nashville really helped sway the Flyers' mind into thinking, all right, this is a guy that we want, and we're convinced he's going to be able to come here, and he wants to come here, and all of those things. And so that story remains to be seen. But I think the confidence level for all the teams picking that area will definitely change one way or the other, depending on how that in-person interview would have gone in Florida.
So after the Blackhawks pick is Anaheim, and I guess Verbeek is it's a little tough to know what he's going to do, but they've kind of signaled that they are looking for a defenseman. You've got Levshunov in that spot, and then comes to Columbus at 4. New GM there in Don Waddell, and Cayden Lindstrom looks like he would be a good fit with the Blue Jackets. You mentioned some concern amongst GMs about the back issue. We had a medical doctor on last week saying maybe not a concern at that age. It probably somebody's going to recognize his talent and work past that. But go ahead. I'll let you turn it over to you as far as Lindstrom and just his talent. The injury aside, just his talent to be able to go top 5.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. 6'3", 200 pounds, a supreme athlete. He comes from pretty humble beginnings, and I think that plays a part in the story as well. But when it comes to Lindstrom, like his ability to shoot and score goals is his greatest asset. Now, the skating ability goes along with that. And I think when you're looking at him and scouting him, the one thing that you would have a question about is this guy going to be able to play center in the National Hockey League like he does in Medicine Hat? And so there's a lot of question marks. Let's take Quinton Byfield as a perfect example of that. When you look at Byfield, he was drafted out of Sudbury as a center. Right now, he's playing his best hockey as a winger with the LA Kings. That's not to say he's not going to move down the road, but there is a slightly less value to that player if you don't project him to play in the middle of the ice when he gets to the National Hockey League. So I think that's aside from the back issues, that's the next question that scouts are going to have. Now, there's a lot to be said about a guy who plays with some meanness, who can be on the wing, who is willing to go into corners and willing to go into battle and play with a nasty kind of element to his game on the wing. There's a lot to be said about that. And so that's an important piece when it comes to Lindstrom. All in all, though, and I do feel that coming out of the Combine, teams will be a lot more confident about the back issues, having been able to be exposed to the medical reports on him. Mm-hmm. And that's an important piece to this puzzle as well. But there's no question this guy fits very comfortably inside the top 5. And if you're supremely confident, and you're sitting there and you're Pat Verbeek and you like size, maybe that conversation starts as early as number 3. Columbus for sure, Fantilli last year, adding Lindstrom to that mix, be it on the wing, and then of course what I always talk about with the Montreal Canadiens at 5 is their need to get some size at the forward position, and this guy perfectly fits that bill.
So we've been talking about the scenario for the last few weeks on the podcast is, what do the Canadiens do at number 5 if the top 3 forwards are already off the board, and they're left with kind of the runners up on their list as far as forwards, or do they go best player available and take a defenseman? In your mock, you have the Canadiens, and you talked about size. I think Beckett Seneca has the size that might help the Canadiens lineup.
Definitely, and that's why I mocked him there, because I'm looking at a situation where TJ Ginla, who's about average size, 6 foot, 187 pounds, not small, but I think a lot of the forwards that are working with Montreal right now and coming up through the system are of similar size. And so adding that element, that Kirby Doc element, I think is going to be important for Montreal. And I think they can choose to be a little bit picky here, based on the fact that they got a ton of young defensemen that are on the way. Mm-hmm. And that's really good news. You saw it with Hudson, Mayu, those guys are on the way. Struble made huge strides last year. Harris looks like he's solidified himself now. Gooley, Barron, the list goes on with where they are and their defensive prospects. So getting back to Montreal and looking at a forward, they wouldn't be wrong at all in selecting TJ Ginla at number 5. He's definitely worthy of that draft position. And if size is something that they need to address, Lindstrom's there. He obviously becomes a really good choice. And now you're looking at Berkeley, Catton, Consta, Hellenius as other forwards who are average to slightly below average size. And is that the way in which they want to go? Do they feel that strongly about those players and their abilities that they would go down that road? Or, hey, we're in a position now that the guys are so close together, let's move towards size a little bit. So for most people, Seneca's a reach at 5. If he addresses that need and they really like his skill set and his projection, it's not necessarily a reach. But I think this is a guy who probably started, 25 in the draft rankings, moved up inside of 20. Then you watched Oshawa without him play London in the OHL final and realized what a big hole he left with him not being able to play. And you thought, all right, now this guy looks like an impact player. And so seeing him 10 and above is definitely not out of the question. Seeing him at 5 is probably a bit of a reach. But again, if that intersects with how they project them and the size that Montreal is looking for up front, then maybe it's a good fit there. So I'm fascinated to see. I really don't think there's any scenario there in which they look at a defenseman. In fact, if it gets to the point where, let's say Lindstrom and Ginla are gone and they feel Seneca's a reach, I'm not necessarily sure a trade back doesn't work itself out. Mm-hmm. You're looking at Calgary at number 9. That would be a perfect option. Mm-hmm. If Calgary wants to guarantee itself of getting a Ginla, getting the number 5 would probably be a pretty good way to do that. But that stuff all remains fluid on the draft floor, seeing what happens ahead of Montreal. So that's going to be an interesting choice. I don't think anyone can sit here and say Montreal is going to take this player with the 5 pick, because I just think it's so fluid above them with the 3 picks above them that it'll change on the floor.
Yeah, you mentioned the combine. During the combine, there's the opportunity to meet with the prospects, but also teams take players out for dinner as a further opportunity to meet with them. One of the players on the Canadiens list, they took Lindstrom out for dinner, Sam Dickinson, TJ Ginla, but the 4th guy was Cole Yzerman, which I thought was kind of a curious choice. Yuri Slafkovsky didn't get a dinner, so I'm taking them out for dinner doesn't mean everything. And there's smoke screens that go on at the combine, misdirection and that sort of thing. But why would the Canadiens focus on Yzerman and wanting to learn more about him? Information gathering? Do they think they can move up into the teens maybe to take him, or what do you think they were doing there?
Yeah, so I think that discovery process is really interesting. I think there's a Boston connection there through Kent Hughes. Mm-hmm. And I think as well as he knows the player, he probably wanted to expose him in a different setting to the rest of the scouting group, to Nick Bobrov and Marty Lapointe and down the list you go, to their group in an entirely different setting. I think Kent's pretty confident in knowing what he would get if he were to draft Cole Yzerman. And you're kind of looking at that, Cole Caulfield idea, where that true sniping ability is his calling card, and that's something that any team can use. Two things that I think about when it comes to that meeting in particular. The first would be, hey, at number 5, I don't think there's any question Cole Yzerman would be available. But we just discussed a trade back scenario.
Right.
And I think trading back into a pick 15 to 10 would probably still give them the option to do that. Now, what assets are going to be available to Montreal by trading pick number 5? The intrigue that we talked about off the top of this show is, hey, nobody knows what it's going to look like after pick number 2. And I can guarantee you there's going to be a team there with pick number 5 open that are saying, we absolutely love this player. Maybe it's a Zane Parekh. Maybe it's a Sam Dickinson. Hey, Montreal, would you be willing to move off of that pick so that we can grab our guy at 5, and now you still may have the option to get Cole Yzerman at pick 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the reasoning for getting Yzerman out. Not only, to see him in a different, more comfortable setting with the rest of the scouting group, but also to explore if that might be an option in the trade back scenario from pick 5.
Well, let me actually ask it to you in a different way, kind of setting up my next question, which is kind of a two-part question, is looking then further down the first round to their 26th overall pick, being a case where, say they keep that number 5 overall pick, would they use the 26th to maybe move up to get a to try to move up to get a Cole Yzerman if they keep it? If not, if they do make the selection, I know in your mock you've got, even said before the show, Rick has been a big fan of the prospect of, no pun intended, the prospect of Dean Letourneau, and that's who you have the Canadiens selecting at 26th overall. So just kind of both sides of the coin at that 26th overall pick. Could a Cole Yzerman still be in play for them if they choose to move off of that 26th?
Yeah, I think, again, you're probably looking at, 13. Honestly, like let's say 10 and on for Yzerman, and it's going to be in that 10 to 15 range. So moving pick 26 and whatever other asset that means, would definitely be something that you'd have to think that they would consider there. For me, at pick 26, I'm probably looking for an anomaly type player, and that's why I put Dean Letourneau in that spot. I think he's a project guy that's going to take some time to get there. I think he's a guy that has great intrigue because of his size. I think he's a guy that's proven he can do some really good things. He's got that lacrosse background too. He plays lacrosse for St. Andrews College, and I think that's an important element to his development. And so when I'm looking at that spot, like really past pick number 20, I think this thing is wide open. And so at that point, yes, I think there's an opportunity to address positional need. Yes, there's an opportunity to take a swing for the fences and try and hit a home run. And Dean Letourneau probably fits both of those things for me. So at that point, I think Montreal keeps the pick. They'll be really happy with whatever they get at 5. And I think they really try and hit a home run, maybe go off the board, do something very Kent Hughes-like, as you might say there.
And another Kent Hughes-like thing to do is to make a trade at the draft and to kind of accelerate the rebuild, to bring in a player with some experience under his belt that may be underachieving elsewhere. Our listeners have asked us about Patrick Laine and him coming off the assistance program with the NHL, NHLPA, and whether it would be worth taking a gamble on bringing in a player like that. Expect that Columbus would have to have some sort of a sweetener, whether that's withholding salary or including a prospect or whatever that might be. What's your feeling on the potential? If there's still something in the tank there, for Patrick Laine if he can turn his career around?
I think that potential always exists. And what kind of impact did the Players' program have on him? That's the due diligence that any team acquiring would have to do. In terms of his on-ice ability, I mean, he's a scorer. We've seen that. There's no question he can do that. And so at that point, you're looking at Winnipeg, and then you're looking at Columbus, and you're thinking, all right, like, is this a pattern? Is this a player who's immature, who's not going to get over it? Is this a player now who's maybe started to figure it out? I think when looking at the Montreal Canadiens, the one thing that I feel really confident about is the synergy between Ken Hughes and Marty St. Louis. And that's, that was a bold choice to make, considering he hadn't coached at all other than kids. It's turned out to be, a brilliant move to this point. And I think when it comes to the acquisition of players, they feel really strongly that they're going to be able to extract the absolute most out of any player they acquire, be it through the draft or through trade, because of Marty's abilities. I think Slavkovsky, year one, oh my gosh, what is this? What's going on here? Year two is like, oh, now we're starting to see it. And Marty was largely responsible for that, with him being the sole message sender to anything hockey related to Slavkovsky. And I think now we're seeing a guy who's on a big trajectory. So having said that, the acquisition of players made by Ken Hughes looks a little bit different, I think, for Montreal than most teams, because of how much confidence they have in Marty's ability to extract the most out of every player he has on his roster. And that might be the thing that tips the scales there. Now, having said all that, Ken Hughes is a smart guy. So he probably looks at a situation where he's saying, all right, you're going to have to retain money, and, maybe with whatever other, or we retain money and we're taking a prospect with us type of thing. So I think there would be some opportunity there. And if the prospect acquisition would be part of that, that would be more of an insurance plan of someone that they really, really, really like. That's the interesting part to me about Laine and the speculation around him being acquired by the Montreal Canadiens.
There are so many possibilities, when not just in terms of, as we've talked about, all of the different scenarios that can happen with the prospects and which order they get selected next week, but also in terms of the potential trades leading up to and at the draft. And boy, you once again knocking it out of the park for us, Sam. Always having such great insight to bring for us. We can't thank you enough again for coming on the show again this year. Don't forget, Sam's second and final mock draft will be available on sportsnet.ca before the draft. Probably, Sam, probably next Wednesday or Thursday-ish, somewhere around there.
Yep. Yeah, both Jason Bukala and I will put out mock drafts, and they'll come out Wednesday, Thursday. We're just... I think we got to flip coins to see who ends up going first. We haven't had the official flip yet.
All right. Well, we will be looking for that for sure. We'll absolutely be watching your coverage on Sportsnet as well. And once again, we just really appreciate you taking the time out of a very busy time of year for you. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Okay, Amy, Rick, thanks so much for having me on once again. Always a pleasure. Great speaking with you both, and looking forward to seeing you.
Thanks so much.
And thanks so much. Big thank you to Sam Cosentino for lending us that time out of his very busy schedule. I know with the draft coming up, he probably doesn't have a ton of time, so we appreciate every moment of it.
We sure do. And yes, he is very busy at this time of year. Kind of a tradition. And he mentioned that we've had him on now for 6 or 7 years. And we're very grateful when he comes and shares his knowledge with us, but more importantly, with you, our valued listeners. We've tried to do the best we can to prepare you for the draft in bringing in experts, elite prospects. Draft scout was Russ Cohen, Jerome Berube, the director of scouting from Hockey Prospect, Michael Agello attending the combine. And then Sam Cosentino and Sam to present his thoughts on how the draft is going to go, mocking the draft. He'll have, as he said, one more mock before the draft, and we'll see if that changes. But right now at number 5, Beckett Seneca, that's who he's mocking, the Canadiens taking. And then at 26, my favorite, the real project, Dean Letourneau from St. Andrews College. It'll be fascinating to see how it all turns out. Again, it's just it's hard to predict. I know by this time last year, we kept telling you that we were hearing David Reinbacher. And as much as many of our listeners didn't want to hear that, they wanted to hear Michkov, they might have wanted to hear other names, but we were telling you it was sounding like it was going to be David Reinbacher. Turned out to be correct. This year, it's a bit more murky, and part of that is because it's unknown what's going to happen in front of Montreal. Of course, I've said it many times, Chicago is the pivot point. It really depends on whether they go with the forward or they go with the defenseman. But I think if you peeked over the shoulder, and this is just my impressions, I don't have any inside knowledge, just what I've been hearing from people around the league and scouts, and especially all this talk about criticism of Demidov. That seems to mean that he's pretty high on the Canadiens list, and if he was available, I'm pretty certain that the Canadiens would snap him up at 5. If Demidov isn't available and Lindstrom is, then they're taking Lindstrom. If both of those players are gone, and we saw that scenario with Sam's mock, that both Demidov was gone at 4 to Columbus. Lindstrom at 4 to Columbus and Demidov to Chicago at 2. Then Sam has Seneca at 5. I think that it would be between Zibulium or Seneca at 5 if both of those were gone. I think pretty tantalizing prospect. Those kind of defensemen don't come along all that often, and the Canadiens, I think, like Zibulium a fair bit. So that's my thoughts in just kind of analyzing what we've heard. And we'd certainly love to hear what our audience thinks about that.
Yeah, and that leads us very well into our Canadiens Connection question of the week, as we ask all of our listeners, should the Canadiens draft for need with the 5th overall pick, or select the best player available, even if that means taking a defenseman? I'll give you some time to digest everything you just heard from Sam, Cosentino, Rick, and Amy as we head into our final break here. Please make sure that you stay around with us. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
The Canadiens Connection is proud to be a partner of Rocket Sports Media, digital media publishers of sports and entertainment websites. Their mission is to build a worldwide network of sports fans who are informed, engaged, entertained, and connected. Learn more about RSM, its team, and its portfolio of brands at rocketsportsmedia.com. I bet you enjoy sporting your best Habs jerseys, dressing up your kids and pets in the cutest Habs gear, and showing off your decked-out hockey cave or fanning. Well, don't just show your friends, show your Habs. The Rocket Sports Media team wants you to boast your finest pictures for our global network of Montreal Canadiens fans. Include the hashtag #ShowYourHabs when posting your fan photos on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Then log on to showyourhabs.com to see your entries, along with photos and posts from Habs fans all over the world. A proud member of the Rocket Sports Media Network. If you're a business owner looking for the perfect platform to reach a targeted audience of customers, Rocket Sports Media is the solution. Our global hockey community provides unmatched social media reach to an attentive demographic of sports and entertainment fans. We can provide visibility to your company, helping you to engage and leverage this prime group of potential clientele. In addition, we also offer sponsorship opportunities for fan events and featured areas of website content, giving you name and logo recognition. Visit rocketsportsmedia.com to contact us regarding this unique marketing opportunity. For the most trusted source of news, analysis, and features about the Montreal Canadiens, log in to thn.com/Montreal, your year-round source for anything Habs related. That's thn.com/Montreal.
Welcome back to episode 301 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. You can follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. And just a little reminder here, you can text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line. The number is 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. And just wanted to give another little thank you to Sam Cosentino from Sportsnet for joining us there in that second segment and giving us all the information we could possibly want about the upcoming draft. He did a great job there, and Rick, you and Amy did a phenomenal job leading the way through that conversation as well.
Yeah, it's always a great time to talk hockey, to talk draft, to talk prospects with Sam. Wealth of knowledge and just a delightful person.
So it's going to be a busy offseason for these Montreal Canadiens. Of course, we got the draft coming up, then free agency. Well, here's where you can find everything you need to know from Rocket Sports. We cover the Montreal Canadiens for the hockey news. You can find all of that content at thn.com/Montreal. All of your Canadiens coverage in one place. And if you're looking for some multimedia content, you can head over to our YouTube channel. You can just search at All Habs and you'll be able to pull that up. Make sure you're subscribed, as every single Monday you'll find this podcast, Canadiens Connection, that gets posted. And last week's episode was entitled NHL Draft. Medical expert analyzes impact of Lindstrom's injury. So if you haven't already, make sure you check that out. And throughout the offseason, you can look out for a couple shows hosted by our one and only Amy Johnson as well. The Rocket Hockey Report and the Habs Hockey Report. Both of these are great midweek updates, and you can find a wealth of knowledge there from Amy, who's been covering the Montreal Canadiens and the Laval Rocket for a number of years now. So if you like what you see, leave a like. Leave a comment as well. Get involved in that conversation. We love to hear from everyone, and hit subscribe. Plus, you can hit the notification bell. That way, you're the first to know about any new piece of content we put out. Plus, throughout the off-season, we will be hosting watch-along live streams. We will let you know about those as those come up. Last season, we did some for a couple of games a month throughout the season. We did one for the draft lottery as well, so we're looking forward to bringing you your next one. Typically, these are hosted by myself, Michael, and my Rocket Sports media colleague, Nathan. We have a lot of fun doing this, so like I said, head over to our YouTube channel, at All Habs, hit subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. Plus, you can make sure that you're subscribed to the premier Rocket Sports radio podcast on your favorite podcasting app, the Canadiens Connection. Every single episode is also available at canadiensconnection.fm. We're going to be here every single Saturday throughout this busy summer to bring you great content. And if you enjoy the show, we'd really appreciate if you left us a 5-star review. And if you want to help us out a little bit, feel free to share it on X, Facebook, Reddit, or on any of your social media accounts. We are your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. And Rick, throughout this busy offseason too, it's a good time to start recruiting. I believe that we're looking to bring on a few more great Rocket Sports team members.
We have a great team at Rocket Sports and contribute to the hockey news. We work hard, we're committed, we're dedicated, we're passionate about hockey and the Montreal Canadiens. And we've been doing this for 15 years, and some of the members of the Rocket Sports team have been with me for that long as well. I guess beyond that, beyond working hard, beyond being dedicated, we have a lot of fun, and we enjoy working with each other. If you want to be part of that, why don't you send me an email? My email address, our email address is hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
And now it's time to get to our Canadiens Connection question of the week. As this week, we wanted to ask you a very particular question about this upcoming draft. And that is, should the Canadiens draft for need with the 5th overall pick, or should they select the best player available, even if that means a defenseman? We want to hear from you. And last week, we did receive some reaction to our episode 300 entitled Inside the Combine, Unraveling the Probable Draft Scenarios for the Montreal Canadiens. And we got quite a few great messages and comments and texts, tweets, emails, but there was one in particular that we wanted to give a little shout out to.
We certainly do. This one, I should mention first, a really thoughtful message from Tim in St. John, New Brunswick, on Facebook, messaged us and put out a scenario that was I thought very creative and talked about just that issue that, whether it's looking at best player available, if that means a defenseman, would the Canadiens take that defenseman and then arrange a trade for the player that they want and maybe get back a little bit of an asset? We had quite a conversation back and forth. So I enjoy talking hockey with creative, thoughtful people like that. And Tim really appreciated your messages this week. He loves the show and had some real nice compliments in there for both of us. But the one that I'm going to read is from YouTube, and this comes from @CenterHeist7948. And he's talking about episode 300. He says, "Great episode, guys. I was so impressed with seeing some legitimacy on the back injury of Lindstrom. It was getting so tiresome listening to a lot of small podcasts just spewing garbage on Lindstrom's back injury info on a basic medical report. Those particular small podcasts like to fly off any gossip or articles having no credible or factual proof for their comments, but try to influence a lot of their followers with total BS. I was so happy to see an actual interview with a back specialist to support what the actual injury entails. I know the injury well, and when I played full contact sports in the day, I had that injury, and it didn't stop me from finding a program to strengthen my back. I was fine during my playing days." He goes on, multiple paragraphs. I encourage you to go and read it on YouTube. I'll just jump ahead and finish up. This again from @CenterHeist7948 says, "For me, Lindstrom would be the perfect pick, and Demidov would be a second choice. But I wouldn't go for another defenseman with that pick. Too much of a logjam already at defense in Habs land. I'd trade it away before drafting another defenseman at this time. For me, it's Lindstrom or a Demidov, or it's a bust. Great job in getting an expert to address the actual facts about the injury. I love the show that has integrity. Keep up the great work." Thank you for this message. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your comments. We really, we try to be the source that you can trust. And as I said, we've been doing this for the past 15 years. And also a big shout out to Dr. Stephen Morris, who came in and provided some expertise with respect to Cayden Lindstrom's back injury.
And just to show a little bit more love for Stephen Morris here, I will say I listen to a lot of hockey podcasts throughout the week, and there was one in particular I was listening to a couple weeks back where one of the hosts went out of his way to say something along the lines of, it'd be great if there was just a medical expert that was on a podcast. And I thought to myself, you know what? That's why we're especially lucky to have Stephen Morris on Canadiens Connection periodically. So big thank you to him and providing all that reliable expertise.
That's a great example. There is one. It's called the Canadiens Connection. Tune in.
Exactly. So coming up, it's going to be a very busy week leading up to the NHL Draft. But next Saturday, June the 29th, we will have our NHL Draft Extravaganza show. So expect this one to come out a little bit later as the draft does run on Saturday at our usual recording time. We will release this after the 7th round once we have all of the picks in. And for those looking to maybe relax a little bit and have some fun, if you're in the Montreal area, Francophone Music Festival is still on. And next week, Montreal Jazz Festival is going to start. Lots of free performances and stuff to look forward to there.
Yeah, very nice.
So that's going to be a wrap for us today. Thank you all for listening. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on any of your favorite podcasting apps. You can also share it on social media if you like what you heard. Enjoy the week, and we'll be back here next Saturday, June the 29th for Draft Day. That'll be another great episode. Really looking forward to it. Thank you all for listening to Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Rocket Sports.